I definitely know that there are tons of people who go through way harder shit than this. So this isn't a sob story. I don't want it to come across like that. Personally, I've been in positions that have been way worse. And I know that people go through even worse things than that. So I don't want this to come across like a sob story. Plenty of people have it fucking worse. And all things considered, I'm doing very, very well. Alright, what's up guys? So I just wanted to make a video to touch on the recovery issue that I've been kind of talking about in a couple of my previous videos. The previous videos that I discussed it a little bit in the past were filmed well over a month ago. I mean, to be honest, the Arnold Expo videos were filmed over a month ago at this point, so my apologies for how late those are. But anyway, so things have been rough lately, so I've just been running at a little bit of a slower speed. But I also wanted to make sure that I waited kind of until I had answers for some things before I made this video, so that I wasn't just kind of repeating the stuff I'd already said. So I just wanted to make this video to kind of explain what I mean, give you guys some details. Now that I've got some answers after going through some testing and speaking to some different professionals. So now I'll actually be able to give you guys some details. So basically I'll just start by kind of explaining what I mean by recovery issue, because obviously that's pretty vague. So it's not a soreness thing. Oh, and also if you see me looking on my phone, so that I don't ramble too much, I wrote out like a little bit of a script to kind of keep me on topic here. So anyway, it's not a soreness thing. It's not like muscle soreness where it's just like, oh, take a hot shower, go for a walk, eat some extra food, take an Epsom salt bath or whatever, and you'll be fine. It's more like the fatigue that I experience from workout or a stressful event in my life. Obviously, working out is the most common stressor for me. The fatigue that I experience from that kind of thing is just disproportionate to the amount of stress that I experience. So for example, after a workout where I push all my sets to technical failure. So you guys know I train hard, I train to failure. Sometimes I'll train past failure on certain sets, but even if I don't, if I train harder than like 3 RIR on every exercise or 2 RIR on every exercise, I feel like basically the way I would describe it is disgustingly hungover for the next several days. And then obviously it just keeps getting worse because if I keep training, like just trying to stay on schedule, then that's just more stress and more fatigue. So the way I would kind of describe it is like for those of you who drink, if you go out and get absolutely hammered and then barely sleep, the way you feel mentally the next day is how I feel for several days after, a workout that most people should have no issue with. But even, I don't know if a hangover is necessarily the right comparison, because even for me anyway, when I'm hungover, I still can goof around and enjoy being with my friends and stuff like that. I just don't feel super motivated or intelligent, or I have a lot of brain fog and stuff. But this is worse than that, because the next day after I train, or the next several days, I just feel like fucking depressed as hell. And I'll explain kind of what I mean by that in a second here when I get into like the symptoms specifically. Oh yeah, and that's, that's even though my workouts are already pretty short. Like you guys are pretty familiar with like how short my workouts are, how low I'm a more higher intensity, low volume guy. So like for example, my leg days are only they're probably like 2 to 3 sets of hamstrings and 3 to 4 sets of quads, and then like adductors and calves and forearms, so some accessory work. And then even with the accessory work, it's only a total of like probably 10 to 12 working sets, which is very little. But with that being said, it's still enough to put me over the edge and make me feel like fucking shit for like the next several days. And then of course it just gets, like I said, progressively worse and worse and worse over the next days and weeks if I keep pushing and trying to make up for how I'm feeling with taking more caffeine and blah blah blah, and still trying to progress my lifts and that kind of thing. So when I'm talking about like the symptoms of extreme fatigue, what I mean by that is like zero motivation to do anything, regardless of what it is. I'm usually a very motivated individual, but I usually have zero motivation to do anything. Like even the smallest fucking thing, like going to the grocery store, I'm like, I just could not be fucking bothered. And that's not like laziness, because it's not like, oh, I just like can't get out of my own way. It's like literally anything. It takes like me gritting my teeth to go to the grocery store to like get the most basic shit done. Literal depression, and by that I mean just like I don't enjoy any of the things that I usually enjoy doing, don't enjoy hanging out with my friends, don't enjoy playing video games, don't enjoy watching movies, don't enjoy literally anything. I just kind of exist until I can go to sleep again. So that's what I mean when I say like I feel depressed as fuck, like, which obviously makes it really difficult to continue to make content and stay on top of responding to my clients and taking care of my my coaching business and making content on Instagram and filming videos for YouTube and all that kind of stuff, like I'm already an introvert, so those things can be sometimes difficult for me. Well, mostly the YouTube thing, and then to add on top of that, just like the complete lack of motivation or give a fuck to do any of that stuff just makes it brutal. Zero libido. My libido gets fucking crushed. Like I said, complete lack of excitement or enjoyment from the things I usually love and that usually make me happy. So it's not just like, oh, I don't want to do the things that are hard, like, you know, making content or doing client intake calls or things like that, which I know to some people, like, you might be like, well, that's not fucking hard at all. It's hard because it's like, it's not actually natural for me. So it takes me a little bit out, it takes me outside my comfort zone, you know what I mean? And of course, like, making content's not super fucking fun all the time. It depends what I'm making content on, that kind of thing. But I'm saying that, like, everything I don't want to do. Like, even the things that take zero effort that should be just pure hedonistic enjoyment, I don't even want to do those things. Oh yeah, brutal brain fog and lack of focus. Sometimes I'm literally talking to Gleddy, and who is my roommate for those of you who don't know, or like friends on the phone or clients, and I just like can't even formulate a sentence because like I lose track of what I'm trying to say. So I don't have the best attention span or focus ability at the best of times, but like it gets completely fucking nuked after a tough workout or if I go too long without a deload. Caffeine doesn't work, so even if my usual tolerance is like 150 milligrams a day, if I jack that up to 500 milligrams in one day, it doesn't do anything for me except make my heart beat faster. So I just like, I don't get any of the benefits of it. I just get the shitty part of it. So like, sometimes you can be so fatigued that caffeine just doesn't work, basically. And that's what I'm saying. Oh yeah, and then no matter how much I sleep, whether it's 10 hours or 7 hours or 6 hours or 12 hours, I still need a nap throughout the day. And I usually, at least up until the last several months, I've never been a napper. I don't like napping. I feel like shit when I wake up from naps, and I don't like wasting time throughout the day. I would much rather just sleep longer at night so that I can just be productive and enjoy myself and be alive throughout the day. But, excuse me, but like when I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm going to use that word a lot during this video. It doesn't matter how much I sleep. Even if I pound caffeine and it makes my heart pound, I can still manage to fall asleep. I still need a nap like a couple hours after that. It's not good. Anyway, and then of course it kind of goes without saying that I can't progress movements for very long because my body's just not recovering. Which is why you guys have probably heard, for those of you who've been following me for a long time, you've probably heard me say that I'm deloading like quite a bit. And now if your training is really dialed in, you don't need to deload very often at all. But for me, I need to deload like, you know, the last couple of months, I needed to deload like every fucking 3 weeks because my movements would just plateau and I would start feeling even shittier than I already was. So I have had some really bad days mentally before. I had like an unprecedented mental health crisis, for lack of a better term, back in 2019. And that is the reason that I now take an SSRI. Some of you may or may not know that. So I definitely know what it feels like to be like clinically depressed and clinically anxious. Luckily, I don't have any anxiety with this fatigue problem, but I definitely have depression, you know, dependent on my level of fatigue. So when I say that like I'm depressed, as I kind of just explained to you guys, like I'm genuinely depressed. Like these days are just as bad as the depression days were back in 2019 when I had to go see like a couple of different professionals basically to fix my fucking brain. And for the record, my SSRI that I'm on could be the reason that my recovery is thrown off. And I'll explain why when I kind of explain like our current theories. So just kind of, now that you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about, I'll give you guys a little bit of a background story. I've been dealing with this for at least as long as I've been doing social media. So it first started as just what seemed to be kind of a low volume tolerance. Even back in university, some of my football teammates would make better progress than I would, even though they'd eat whatever they want and be out drinking all the time, and I'd be like sleeping perfectly, eating perfectly. I would still go out on the weekends, you know, once a month or something like that, but I was dialed. And I had these guys on my team, like some of my buddies, who just didn't care as much. They'd be out, like I said, not taking care of themselves, and they would progress more than I would. So that was kind of like the first indicator. When I started powerlifting in 2020, I couldn't run training blocks for as long as most people because my performance would plateau after like 2 weeks. And I needed to deload constantly because I would just get run into the ground with fatigue and start feeling like the way I just described. At the time though, it wasn't so severe, so it kind of could have just been explained by how hard I train and how consistent I am with the gym, whereas other people maybe tend to kind of loaf with their accessories or take days off when they don't feel like going, which I never did because I love going to the gym. I know there are lots of people who don't do that and don't have any issues, but I'm just saying it was a reasonable explanation at the time, and we were kind of trying to be realistic. We didn't want to jump to any drastic conclusions like, oh, there is something wrong with you. My powerlifting coach at the time, Sean Noriega, actually told me that I had the lowest volume tolerance of any of his athletes by far, which I did think was weird considering that I had my sleep dialed in, my diet was dialed in, my lifestyle factors were dialed in. Like at the time I was so nerdy and like so fucking optimal about lifting that I was definitely taking better care of myself than probably most of his athletes, because a lot of his athletes were, younger kids like myself at the time, but just didn't have the knowledge that I had. So it continued like that for a while, where we had to continue dropping volume and shortening training blocks until eventually I just couldn't handle enough volume to continue getting stronger. And I just thought I wasn't cut out for powerlifting. So I quit powerlifting and basically switched to pure bodybuilding in hopes that I'd kind of reduce volume and take a more like high intensity approach, which we know is better for limiting fatigue based on, eliminating junk volume and stuff like that. And hopefully I was going to see success with that. So with my bodybuilding coach, who is my current coach, Nick Gloff, we took a very systematic approach to everything. Nick's very meticulous with his programming and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And so we tracked everything. Even so, I took a full week off training before I started with Nick, and it was like probably 2 or 3 weeks in with Nick, and I was like, man, I need to fucking deload. I am absolutely fucking smashed. And of course, Nick was like, well, are you sure, dude? Like, are you sure it's fatigue that you're dealing with and it's not something else? Like, are you sick, or are there lifestyle things going on, like stressors in your life or whatever? And I was like, no, everything's fine. Because obviously he was like, dude, nobody gets beat up that fast. So he was kind of like doubtful at first. Anyway, so we deloaded, and then we dropped volume and frequency down like 3 times each until we went from running like 2 on, 1 off to 1 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. And then drop the volume way down to, like I said, no more, like all of my workouts, regardless of whether it's leg day or upper or whatever, are all like 8 to 12 working sets. So super low volume by normal people's standards. But even that didn't work, and I was still running into issues with performance plateauing, like I said, every couple of weeks, and dealing with extreme chronic fatigue, depression, lack of motivation, all the stuff that I just described. So the Arnold Classic weekend about a month ago was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I pushed myself really hard that weekend because I wanted to make the most of the experience. So I wanted to make sure if I was spending the money to go on the trip that I got as much content as I could, I met as many people as I could, I experienced as much as I could. So obviously I just like redlined my nervous system with caffeine to kind of like make ends meet for the duration of that trip. And that was basically kind of what fucked me over, at least brought me to the point where I was like, okay, I can't keep trying to like make ends meet here and train and deload quite often, but keep training. I was like, fuck it. I'm taking a full fucking month off so that I am able to just get my bearings again and regroup. And so I have. Today is day 28 or 29 without training at all. For the last 4 weeks, I've just been trying to get sunlight, go for walks, eat great quality food, eat a lot of food, although we dropped, I've basically been eating at maintenance, but I've been still going out and enjoying like free meals, if you will. Just trying to prioritize recovery as much as I can. The first week back from the Arnold Classic, I swear to God, first 3 nights I slept 14 hours and then 12 hours and 12 hours, and then 10 hours at least for the rest of the nights for that first week that I came back from the Arnold. And then every day I still needed to drink a bunch of caffeine to get the bare minimum shit done, and then I still need to take naps during the day. So that first week I came back, I was fucked. And that's why I say like the shit is delayed, because it took me so long to get shit done. So as far as the testing and stuff like that, I've had 3 sets of blood work done. I had 2 sets of blood work done just in the last 2 months, and then I had another set of blood work done back in September, and I also had a sleep test done, and I had the Dutch test done, which I spoke about in one of my previous videos, which is basically like a hormone test where you take urine and saliva samples all throughout the day and then get them analyzed. And everything came back completely normal, even optimal. My blood work is basically fantastic. The only thing that came back kind of odd was my Dutch test showed that my cortisol rhythm is very off. So I'm making enough cortisol to wake up in the morning, but then my cortisol rhythm throughout the day does not follow the typical cortisol rhythm that most people's rhythms follow, which could explain the lack of energy throughout the day, and it could explain maybe poor sleep quality, because if my cortisol is kind of going up at night when it should be going down, my sleep isn't going to be as deep, right? And your cortisol is tested through saliva with the Dutch test. Now there are issues with the Dutch test, there are possibilities that I kind of fucked up taking my samples or shipping it or whatever. But that's the only thing we kind of have to go off of right now, and it does seem consistent with my symptoms. So yeah, my vitamins, nutrients, testosterone, hormones, all that stuff is basically completely normal. So a lot of people are like, dude, it sounds like you need TRT. Like, it sounds like your test is low. My test is fine. My test is like 600, which is not amazing, but it's normal. And I think it's been 700 on previous blood tests, so it's never been a problem. So I don't need to do TRT or anything like that. Although at this point, I'm ready to fucking just start sticking a needle in my ass because I'm just want this fixed. Although, to be honest, that would probably just kind of like band-aid the situation, so it wouldn't actually fix it, and then I would probably run into more issues. So anyway, I digress. So I've gone to see Derek for More Plates, More Dates' HRT clinic for blood work analysis. So I got bloods done with them and then got them analyzed by them. Derek himself analyzed my blood work. I'm working with Dr. Dwayne Jackson, who is the head of nutrition at Prescript. He's a fucking absolute weapon. And I'm working with my coach, Nick, and obviously all of his functional medicine contacts and colleagues who are used to dealing with pro bodybuilders, who fuck up their hormones and biochemistry and all that kind of stuff. I'm working with a naturopath here locally who is fantastic. She's very evidence-based and all about optimizing things, as well as a biomedical science academic, my boy Pedro, who's an absolute genius with everything, biochemistry, genetics, all that kind of stuff. So between all of these people, we have two main theories. The first one, I have some type of adrenal insufficiency, which is not the same thing as like adrenal fatigue. Adrenal insufficiency, there's a couple different stages of it, but Addison's disease is like stage 1 adrenal insufficiency, which is basically just like there's damage to your adrenal glands, and so they just don't produce cortisol, or they don't produce the hormones that they usually produce in the right amounts. I don't think I have Addison's, but there's also stage 2 adrenal insufficiency, which is where like ACTH, which is released from the pituitary to tell the adrenals to release cortisol, is not being released or produced properly. So that's a possibility. And like I said, that could be impacting my sleep at night, but definitely my energy throughout the day. I don't know if, for those of you who don't know, cortisol is like the primary stress hormone that gives our body energy. The second theory is that I have an underlying viral infection that my body is able to suppress enough that I don't have any like visible symptoms, but not suppress so much that it's like completely cured me or completely tolerable. So I still kind of have like, I'm always kind of fighting something off. So if that kind of makes sense. I don't know what that virus would be. Like I said, I don't have any symptoms. I don't have any recollection of a virus that like really fucked me up. But it's a possibility. Unfortunately, we can't really confirm either of those things right now. I still have to do more testing. I'm gonna have to potentially go to the States just to get my blood work done because it's so difficult to get certain blood work done here in Canada with the healthcare system the way it is here. But that's fine. I'm willing to, pay to travel and pay to get the blood work done privately out of pocket, just so that I can have just so I can have this figured out. Because at this point, I just want this fucking solved. I don't care. It's literally the number one priority in my life right now, aside from, my obligations to my clients and that kind of stuff. That being said, I am feeling better after taking a month off, but it took a long time to actually notice any benefits from the increased rest. So like I said, the first week that I came back, even after 3 or 4 days of just basically sleeping, eating, and not training, I still felt like dog shit. And I mean like 2 out of 10. After 4 weeks, I'm up to like 5 to 6 out of 10 most days. Today and yesterday, I still had to have a nap during the day. I've taken all supplements out of my routine except for the ones that have been recommended to me. And I'm still taking, like vitamin D and creatine. But I'm not taking any of the Grillamine supplements right now. I'm not taking any caffeine. I've been off caffeine 100% for probably 2 weeks now, 2.5, maybe even 3. But yeah, I still didn't really feel noticeably better until probably a week ago. And that was when I was finally like, okay, a week ago, I'm now consistently feeling like 5 out of 10. Whereas before, 2 weeks before that, I was feeling consistently 1 to 2 out of 10. So yeah, the rest has certainly helped. With that being said, this is not what I wanted to hear, but we've kind of decided to prolong the off period just so we can see if I need even more time. So I'm going to take at least another couple of days, maybe another full week, excuse me, to see if we notice more continued increase in like my sense of well-being and energy and mood. So we're going to see. But anyway, those are kind of the details. I just want to make this video to kind of give you guys some insight as to why I've been, kind of inconsistent and complaining and bitching a lot. I definitely know that there are tons of people who go through way harder shit than this. So I'm not this isn't a sob story. I don't want it to come across like that. I've been in positions that have been way worse. You know, in 2017, I had a knee surgery that got infected, and then I had to get another knee surgery 2 weeks later, and then an emergency surgery a week after that because I was septic. And then after that, I was on antibiotics for 8 months. And then had a fourth knee surgery, and throughout the entire 8 months I was on antibiotics to fight off this infection. There was the possibility I was going to lose my leg because they were going to have to amputate it if we couldn't kill the infection. That was a super stressful period of time in my life. And then obviously the mental health crisis that I just kind of spoke about, that was a brutal period of time in my life. So those two things are definitely worse than this. And I know that people go through even worse things than that. So I don't want this to come across like a sob story. Plenty of people have it fucking worse, and all things considered, I'm doing very, very well. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys some insight. Also, with respect to the knee surgery and stuff like that, we had a list of the antibiotics that I was on checked by a professional to see if maybe they would have like fucked up my gut biome. None of them were, none of them were like the typical culprits for like fucking up gut biome. So, and then I've also been on a clinical probiotic for the last 1 to 2 weeks under the recommendation of one of the professionals who I'm working with. So I definitely don't think that it's a gut biome thing, but I just wanted to kind of make that distinction for any of you who might be like, well, dude, if you were on antibiotics for that long, like, no wonder you're feeling all fucked up. Like, you probably have fucked up gut biome. But yeah, so it's, we're trying to figure things out. I'm hopefully going to be back to training soon and back to feeling energetic and stuff like that, making content again, at least more consistently on YouTube. It's kind of been a blessing that the Arnold videos had taken so long to get posted, just because it's still allowed me to post some videos every week without actually having to film. Because honestly, until like a couple days ago, I did not have the energy to film, and the videos would have been shitty, and I'm not even training anyway, and you guys don't want to see me not fucking train. So yeah, that is the synopsis. Thank you very much if you made it all the way through this video, and for kind of sticking with me. And hopefully the next time I have an update on this kind of stuff, it will be a good one, and we'll know kind of a little bit more about it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.